We're gonna say something else, Dan.
Someone say something to me?
Hey, I can hear you. I didn't hear you before. Hey, how are
Oh,
you?
I'm sorry. I can hear you. I just I can hear you, but I can't hear you. It's me, not you.
I need somebody in my class. You might be the only one. Let me go see if I can. Down some more.
You were so drunk from last night, probably.
I know. Um, Hold on. Hold on.
I don't know if it's the market or what, but I noticed a lot of the trainings lately have been like this, you know?
Kind of slow.
Yeah,
Well, we have people in Zoom world,
good.
so I may have to stop doing it on Zoom, get more people in the room. Anyway.
Or
Hey,
you,
guys, come next time.
or just Zoom only.
Okay. I think what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pull up my chair. And we'll just have like a conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. 5 after, so I'm gonna get going. So thanks everybody for coming. At least in Zoom world, I appreciate that. So just, let me see if this is working. There we go. A little bit about me. I'm Karren Amidon. Please, save my information in your phone. If you have any off-market listings, I am also an investor, so you can always load it to me. I will pay you a commission. I don't, I believe in buyers agents, getting paid, and sellers agents, because we all provide value. So,
Not according to the lawsuit.
Anyway, so, and if you want the slides, which I'm not sure if people are gonna really need these slides, but if you do, just, send me a text message and I'll try to get them to you. So what is the first rule in real estate? I'll just give it back.
Location, yes, location.
Location, location, location. So, but I say to be a good real estate agent, or to just be a good whatever, you need to learn. So I'm really glad that you guys are on this call, and in the room to learn about negotiation. It's, here's a good book. Have you read this book?
I have not.
Okay, it's called Done Deal by Seth Wiseman and Catherine Oates. So Seth did one, and I'm not sure if I brought it, I grabbed it, I brought it. He wrote a book about, 17 years ago, right when I first got into business, called Winning the Negotiation Game.
Okay.
And it was a pretty good book. And he wrote it with Ned Blumenthal, who's also an attorney in real estate, with his partner at the time. And it's a very good book. It was my first book on negotiations. But this book, I think, is better.
Okay.
And I think it's because, the first book was written by 2 attorneys.
Is that Catherine Oates, the attorney?
Uh-huh.
Right?
So, yeah.
Okay.
So the first book was written a lot by, well, like I say, 2 real estate attorneys. And, they see it different, you know? So this time, and I think a lot of it had to do with, has Catherine's, involvement as well, is they went out and interviewed a bunch of agents as well, and was getting feedback from agents as to how they negotiate well. So this is a really, really good book. And, I was interviewed, by Catherine, so some of my stuff is in here.
Nice.
But I think it's a great book and everybody should read it. You can get it a physical book. You can get an Audible book and you can get a Kindle. I have all 3, that's how much I love it. So. Here's another one, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. So, it's a good book on negotiation. He talks a little bit about real estate negotiation, but again, he's not a realtor. He negotiates, he used to negotiate hostage negotiations, right? So life and death. And, life and death negotiations, you can't really split the difference.
Yeah.
You either they're dead or they're not. So, so it is important that sometimes you do need to negotiate as if your life was depending on it. And, if you're negotiating your commission or you're negotiating, something with a spouse, sometimes you need to, go all in on it. But I do think that this book is a much better book for real estate negotiation.
It's not only in the real estate world, it's in your life. You negotiate every day, pretty much.
Right. But when you deal with real estate negotiations, it's very different. And so I say there's the top 2 rules for negotiation is know thyself and know it's not about you. Okay. So we've all done the whole, disc profile.
Mhm.
Okay, so think about your disc profile. My husband's a C, okay? He's very analytical. He's a computer programmer, engineer type person. So for him, his way of negotiation is to convince you with logic, okay? And sometimes that's great, sometimes I say logics need to, to heal, but, it's not always, it's not always about a lot of times it's about not about emotion. The client's emotional, the other agent can be emotional, their sellers, you're representing the buyer or their client, whatever side they're on, can be emotional.
In residential real estate is.
There's a lot of
Very
emotions.
Yeah.
So you need to know what yours is. So one, you can keep yours in check. And like, I'm a driver, okay? I'm a D with a little bit of I, okay? So I enjoy negotiations, okay? I enjoy the back and forth, okay? It's something that I enjoy doing. But I have to realize sometimes that it's not about me, it's about what my clients want.
Right.
So if I was negotiating for myself, it might be completely different than the way I negotiate for a client.
Right.
So know who you are. Ask yourself, do I like negotiation? Okay, some I's and S's, they hate it. They don't like any confrontation. They want everybody to like them. Okay, and it's okay. I have a little bit of that in me, for I do care what people think about me. So, but know that about yourself. Okay, know if it's something difficult for you, then you need to do extra training on negotiation, extra reading. So, so we had somebody who just came in. So I'm going to show you this book, Done Deal. You need to get this book. Have you read it? Okay, take a screenshot right now. So I'm going to give everybody a moment to take a screenshot of that so they can look that up later.
Is your stuff in there? Well,
Huh?
your,
You have stock?
no, it's your, answers to whatever you were interviewed.
Mm-hmm.
Is it in the book or, yeah?
I mean, they don't say it was me, but,
Yeah, sure.
and I'm sure I said something that a lot of other agents said.
Sure.
And I'll get to that in a moment. But know thyself and know it's not about you, it's about what your client wants, okay? So know your client. In other words, see the little ear? You need to listen. You need to have a consultative approach when you talk with your client. You need to explain to them about the market, you need to ask them questions, what it is they're looking for, you need to figure out what are they, what disc are they, okay? Are they used to negotiations, okay? Have they ever negotiated something this big before?
Right,
Okay.
probably not.
Maybe not.
Maybe, yeah,
Because sometimes those that are really good at negotiations are sometimes the toughest ones. Because negotiation for like a car, right, or they're an attorney and they're negotiating a settlement or something, could be completely different than buying a house, right? But you need to enlist them as partners in the negotiation. So it's not just you, because you've got to, get them on board with what you're gonna say or do. Because you don't want to share something with the other agent if you don't have buy-in from your client.
Right.
Okay. So you need to ask a lot of questions and listen to the answers. And you need to observe what they do not tell you. So let me tell you about my first deal. So I had this client and he was a single dad. He got his kids, every other weekend or every weekend, what have you. And so he wanted to be in the neighborhood I lived in. So it was a neighbor who referred it to me. And I showed him tons of houses, okay? He wanted 4 bedrooms. He wanted a basement. He was a single guy, okay? No prospects, no girlfriends or anything like that. But he had 2 kids, okay? So that's what he wanted. He wanted to be close to his friends that were in our neighborhood. He wanted that 4 bedroom. He wanted the basement. And this was my first client, okay? I didn't know what I was doing. So I showed everything in the neighborhood. We went under contract one time and fell through, another story. And then I proceeded to show him tons and tons more. And then it got to the point where I was just his tour director. I was showing him houses that he thought, oh, that looks interesting, let's go to the end. So it wasn't about finding him a house. So I went to my broker and I was explaining it to him. And she says, well, okay, forget what he told you. In showing houses, what do you think he really wants? And I said, well, he wants at least 3 bedrooms because he's got to have a room for his employees. He'd like a basement, but he doesn't really have one. He doesn't have that much stuff. But he wants to be really close to my neighborhood. And he likes the newer houses. My neighborhood was not really new enough. She said, okay, I want you to go out and I want you to open up your criteria and you find the house. Show him other stuff that he's picked and then show them that house last. And that's what I did. When I showed him this house, it was a 3 bedroom with a bonus.
Yeah.
So it didn't count as a 4 bedroom. It had a basement. It was a large house in a fairly new subdivision. And his price point's a relocation. Now, he didn't really care if you had yellow walls and a green kitchen. He didn't care about that because he was going to paint it all anyway, right? He was not a fluff kind of guy. So, and that was his house. And it was a relocation. And they were motivated. They were going to pay closing costs and he needed those. So I showed him all the other houses and then I showed him the house. It was the one. It was the one. And all of a sudden he didn't care about the inspection, a couple issues. The other one, he terminated the inspection because it wasn't the one.
Right.
So you got to listen,
Right.
not to just what they say they want, but when you're showing them property or, your sellers, find out what's really motivating them. What do they really need? Is it getting that price or is it getting moved because they got to get another house? Okay. So understand their motivation.
That happens a lot.
Right.
In this case, it's not.
You gotta-
that's what it is. Yeah.
You got to understand it. So I'm just going to read something from the book, the Done Deal book. It's in the introduction, I believe. He says, truth number one, residential real estate negotiations take place in the context of the real estate market. In a balanced or shifting market, skilled agents can flex their negotiating muscles to craft amazing deals for their clients, regardless of whom they represent. In an extreme market, however, even the strongest negotiators will find it difficult to give their clients a great deal if the market favors the other party. Okay, so, you know, we are, as an industry, under assault. Okay, we can't be average agents. We can't be hobbyists.
Yeah.
It's work, okay, a lot of work. And you've got to show your value to your client, and yet also you've got to be valuable to your client. And the way you do that is to learn and learn and learn, okay? And also know how to sell that to your client, okay? You've got to teach them why you're worth your money.
And show it to them, do it in the process.
You show that, but not just through the process, but you gotta start at the beginning, showing your worth. Then you do it, and each time you retell them, see, I told you, blah, blah, blah. And then when you close, everybody's happy, hopefully. And then you continue to stay up to date with them. So they sing your praises, okay? That's what's important. And then truth number two, for many buyers and sellers, negotiations to buy and sell houses are filled with more emotion than most other negotiations. Being aware of this fact and sympathetic to your client's experience, that your clients are experiencing strong emotions or at least mixed feelings about selling or buying a house, is one of the secrets to becoming a great real estate negotiator. Okay, I couldn't agree more with that, because, and this is something that I've had to learn, because sometimes it can feel like monopoly money, right? Because it's not your money, right? It's your buyer's money, it's your seller's money, right? And you gotta stop with that. I'll tell you a story. This was a recent experience. I had a client, I sold her the house many years ago. She called me back. Well, she called me back probably about 2016, 2017, she was getting a divorce. And went in there on the listing appointment and met her and her soon-to-be ex-husband, and told them what the house could be worth and what they needed to do to get ready. It was a lot of work that they had to do to get ready. And so they decided not to sell it. She bought a house. She kept the house. Then fast forward to this past year, she called me up and said, I got a job in Miami and I'm moving. I need to sell the house. So I went in there. Her motivation was completely different than it would have been when she was getting a divorce, right? So it's a different situation. It was a different client.
Yeah.
And we staged the home. She did everything we told her she needed to do to get it ready. We had multiple offers. We got her over list. It was a great situation, but we knew the house had issues. We were going to have inspection. So we had prepped her. She knew that she was going to be given the money for closing costs. So the inspector came in and did his inspection, of course, found everything. And the agent on the other side took what was important to his buyer, highlighted them, sent me an email, and he put a price tag on it. And I personally think his price tag was way off, too high.
Sure.
Okay, so when I shared that with her, when I went over what the inspection was and what they wanted, and I said, now I'm thinking like, me, the driver, we could get our own quotes on this, and then we might be able to negotiate, instead of paying them $6,000, we might be able to get by with just $4,000. And she's like, I don't care. Well, no. Yeah. I don't care. 6,000, I'm done. I'm fine. I got more for the house than I thought I would. Okay, I'm good. I'm like, okay. So that kind of put me in my place because I realized it wasn't about me. I told her, we could probably get it lower.
Once
This is
final,
overinflated.
we're ready.
But she didn't care. So I had to just step back. So really, I wasn't negotiating. I was ready to, but she didn't want me to. So sometimes you gotta think about that. And, you know, I had a client who had multiple offers and stuff, and we talked about the different offers, and one of them was a lot more secure than the other offer. The other offer, though, was higher, right? So there was a risk thing. And so she was trying to figure out, you know, which one do I want to take? And she said, what do you suggest? What do you think I should do? I said, it's not about me, because I have a different risk tolerance than you do. I'm a greedy person. So I'm gonna try to get that higher dollar, you know, and I think we can go for it. But this other one is more sound, you know, it's easy, so it's up to you. And she decided to go with the cash offer. So, again, you've got to talk to your client and figure out what they want. Then if they do want it, then you gotta know how to negotiate. And, you know, we really weren't doing a lot of negotiation last couple of years until the interest rates went through the roof. And now inspections are back, appraisals are back, getting closing costs, all that is back, maybe not quite to where it was before.
Diligence longer.
Right, so we are still, but you know, if you know the market, you know how to work it, okay? So that's my next slide. You gotta know the market, okay? It's a buyer's market, it's different than if it's a seller's market, okay? You also have to, know the value of the property. You gotta do your homework. You gotta figure out, what is this house really worth? Okay, you've got to price it right in your head. Now, your client may decide they want to price higher, right? And you may take it in this market, okay? But you've got to be honest with them with what you think the real value is.
Right.
If you get an agent that comes in at that value and it's been on the market for a while, you might want to take it, right? Or if they come in even lower than that value, then you need to be able to negotiate towards where it really should be valued, okay? So you've got to study the market, you got to do chart masters, again, you need to learn. And do the Friday calls where you talk about the weekly market update, the carries, do that so that you know the market, okay? And there's some really good suggestions in here. Chapter 1, what makes real estate negotiation so difficult? Okay, again, it's about people. It's about a lot of people. A lot of people come to the party, okay? I love that song. Let's get this party started. That's one of my favorite songs. Okay, but who all comes to the party? You got 2 buyers, maybe, 1 or 2 buyers, 1 or 2 sellers,
Right.
sometimes more,
Sure.
okay? And you've got a listing agent, you got a buyer's agent, so you probably have at least 4 people, most likely 6-ish. But then you have friends and family, right? Let me tell you about that first client that I told you about. So I showed him, I took him out one time, my first buyer, showed him a few houses. One of the houses was like, oh, man. I'm like, okay, cool. And then I'm like, you probably should think about it. You probably should sleep on it. You probably should look at my numbers before we make this offer. So I'm like, why did you sleep on it? It was a seller, it was a buyer's market at the time. So why don't you sleep on it? We'll get back together. We'll talk tonight. And then I'll draw up the contract. So I called him that night. He said, oh, it was like 210 was the listing price. It was a pretty good price. I called him, he says, well, I talked to my mom, she used to be in real estate for like a month. And she's told me I should come in at 180. And I'm like, and I tried to talk about the comps and talk about this market and, if they lower the price from 210 to 200, you're gonna have competition. So really 200 is the value of the house, maybe 205. And you need tons of closing cost money, so you're gonna come in at 180 and still ask for 15 in closing. And you're a VA buyer, okay, it's gonna be kind of hard.
Yeah.
So I shot myself in the foot. I did what he told me to do, I made that crappy offer, and they did not start off well, okay, because they were a bit insulted, okay? We ended up at 205, we were gonna end up anyway, and then the inspection happened. He made me put together 3-page amendment to address concern. 3.
So it should be just 2 or 3 items.
So you don't insulted them and you give them 3. I mean, I did not know what to do at this point. So,
At that point, you ask for money.
so needless to say, we could not work it out and we terminated.
Right,
Okay, I was surprised at the result.
but that's where negotiation comes in. You negotiating with your own,
Your own person, but you need to know who all is coming to the party. Is it just you? Do you have a significant other? Do you have a mom? Do you have a friend? That you want to be part of
but
this?
that's why the education at the beginning,
So that's why you have to do your consultations.
yeah, exactly.
Okay?
Expect this, it's
Ask
market.
lots of questions.
Yeah.
Ask tons of questions, okay? All right. So that's basically chapter 1 of the done deal. Chapter 2 is understand your client and remember that it's their negotiation. Okay, it's their negotiation. What is always the same in any negotiation you ever do? What is the one thing that's always the same?
In a negotiation,
Any negotiations in rural, you can chime in if you want to. What do you think is the one thing that's always the same in any negotiation that you do?
everybody wants what's best for themselves.
Who they know you as, or how you show up, or who you are as an agent, something like that.
You're right away, you're getting close. This is kind of a trick question.
Well, that client that you represent, whether it's buyer, seller, wants you to represent them in the best way, in the best
Right.
interest.
But let's say you're going to buy a car.
Okay.
What's the one common thing between you're buying a car or you're trying to get a woman to agree to marry you, right?
I understand it.
Okay, or you're divorcing, or you're negotiating a contract for your client. What is the one thing
What's best for you?
that's
Yeah.
common amongst all of those? You.
End up happy, end up satisfied, or.
It's a trick question. What's the one thing that's common in all of those scenarios?
Winning.
You. You're the only common denominator. All those negotiations. So what's always the
That's
same
it.
is you. Okay?
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, it's you and how you perceive yourself and how people, see you. But you also have to remember that
Very
sometimes
critical.
you have to check yourself. Okay? Check your ego at the door. Okay? What you want to do is you want to build rapport, be professional at all times. And believe me, it is really hard sometimes when you've got somebody on the other end of the transaction that's not being professional. But when they're not, you be professional.
Yeah.
You check your ego at the door. Calm yourself down.
Well, at the same time, you have to stop them. I mean,
Right.
I have to just say, and I'm not that kind of person, but I need to, I can be definitely, just stop right there. And then the person always gets shocked, because I came in so nice all the time, and all of a sudden that, stop right there, do,
Right.
and then everything changes.
So real estate negotiation, is it more like dating or boxing?
Give and take, boxing?
It's more like It could be more like boxing, and the reason why I say that, is because they say when you're in the ring, you know, there's nobody else besides you and the other person that you can defend that.
Okay.
Longest place in the world, they said.
Yeah, and you give and take.
I think that's true if you're buying a car, but
Here, you got.
I think a lot of times it's more like dating.
Because of the family aspect.
And
married
because
family.
you need to win the other agent over. Because really, you're the go-between, right? You got buyers over here, you got sellers over there, and you're the go-between, right? So really, you're not negotiating with that seller, you're negotiating with the listing agent.
Mhm.
Or if you're the listing agent, you're not negotiating directly with that buyer, you're negotiating with the buyer's agent.
Right.
Sometimes you never meet them until you come to the closing.
Sure.
Okay, so you've got to be professional and you've got to create that rapport with that other agent, first and foremost. And remember that little dog with the ear, you gotta ask questions. So you wanna build rapport with the other agent. Kind of think of it like dating, okay, you're not gonna hit on them, right? But you're gonna make nice, right? Ask questions, how you doing?
Until,
You know, what do you like to eat? You know, well, you don't wanna ask them that, you know.
sure.
It's never a contract, but you wanna build that rapport, right? You wanna make them laugh. Okay? So, and that's where, you know, Catherine asked me, she said, what do you think is, first thing you do, be kind. Be kind and you build rapport with the other agent, you make nice, you ask questions, okay? And then you start, and you always remember that it's not you, right? So, and you don't wanna go like off the rails and say stuff that could jeopardize your client. So you ask good questions, just like you ask good questions of your client, you wanna ask good questions of your other agent, co-op agent.
What's important to the seller, what's.
Right. You've got your representative buyer, what's, you know, besides price,
Right.
what is the ideal offer that you would like to see? Okay, and they'll tell you, you know, they'll say, oh, well, you know,
That's closings.
they're looking to, you know, be out of this house by such and such date, they need 2 days to get out, or they haven't found a house yet. They'll start telling you things when they start telling you about the ideal offer, okay? So let them talk. You don't do as much talking as they do. You ask good questions of the other agent. And then you take that back to your client and you share that with them, okay? And you negotiate many times along the way, right? Sometimes you negotiate when you get the offer. You negotiate during the inspection, any issues that come up. You may have to negotiate appraisal issues. You may even have to negotiate things like to get to the table, right? I mean, I had a client one time who, they were just jerks. And rough negotiation with the inspection, it was a VA buyer and, you know, it was just difficult. It wasn't because of the buyer, it's because of my seller. Because they didn't want to do anything, you know? And, day of closing, they moved everything out. They left trash everywhere. Everywhere.
Well, the contract specifies,
I
it.
know.
Yeah. So when you do the closing table, yes, ask for more money to clean it
I'm
up.
gonna pick up trash. You know? I mean, you do sometimes what you have to do to get to the table, but you also, because I had a good relationship with this agent, there's only so much I could clean. I had to call her, give her a heads up, and because I had a good relationship with her, what we ended up doing is we ended up giving them like a $100 gift card. But if I had a crappy relationship with this other agent, they might have won. Okay, so remember that you want to get to that table, and even if that person may be difficult, you've got to work with them. Okay, I have a realtor friend, a very good realtor friend, who wanted to buy in a particular school district and had been looking for a long time, and she found this perfect house, and she and her husband would see it, and it was perfect, and she made an offer. And they were negotiating back and forth, and it was more Spain listing, and, the house was overpriced, and she tried to convince the guy that it was overpriced, right? Okay. Anyway, they didn't end on good terms, her and the agent. And they went to find something else. And they looked at it, and they weren't finding anything else. So she called me and said, will you help us? So I was her agent. And I will tell you this, I learned more about Alabama football in that transaction than I ever want to know. But we got to closing because I had a good rapport with them. You know, he didn't like them. He liked me, you know, and it was about getting my clients
Right.
what they wanted. So sometimes it's easier to negotiate for somebody else than it is for yourself. Right?
Definitely, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Be the filter. I think this is so important. I tell my clients, and you should do this too, when you do a buyer consult with their client, tell them, stop going to open houses and never ever call the listing agent directly. Make me do my job. I will do it. If you call me, you're never inconveniencing me because I am your wall. Okay, if you want to go to see a house open, I will take you. I'll take you doing the open house, but I will be your wall. You want to go look at new construction? You go with me so I can be your wall. Because buyers, a lot of times, and sellers, I've shown houses where the seller was there. You ever done that? Seller didn't leave. He wants to show you the house. He's very proud of it. He's going to show you every little thing about it. They're going to have diarrhea of the mouth and tell you everything you need to know, right? In your offer. And I tell my clients, I don't want you to be that person. I want to protect you, and I can only protect you if I'm with you. Okay? So be the filter. And when you're negotiating, be the filter. And if you talk to the other agent and they're being a jerk, don't go back to your client and say, you know, that agent's being a jerk. Okay? They don't need to know that. Okay? When you're going back and forth and you find out there's some things you need to always share with your clients. But if the other side is just being, you know, unprofessional, whatever, you know, capacity, sometimes you filter what you share, okay? Because you don't want them to then get angry, right? I mean, some things you gotta share, but you wanna, there are certain things that they need to know and some things they don't need to know, okay? So, and I don't think it's ever a good thing to badmouth the other agent, okay? We are realtors. There's a code of ethics. We're not supposed to be badmouthing other agents. So, you know, keep that in mind. And, that's it. So what I'm gonna do is just talk about a few things that I saw in the book. I'm gonna stop my share. Setting realistic expectations. I think that is just so important. Make sure you're muted out there. Again, when you're negotiating, you need to kind of know what's going on in the market, okay? So, like, think about a couple years ago, when every house had 40, 50 offers. You have a client that was coming below the asking price. We know that it will work, right? So you gotta sit down, you gotta have that consultation to set that realistic expectation. You have a seller, okay? You've got to show him what other houses are selling for. Don't be above taking that seller putting them in your car and showing them in other houses similar to what they're selling. Because if they think they can just sell their house, let's say it's a buyer's market and they don't want to do anything with their house and they want to overprice it, take them and show them the competition, okay? It's kind of hard to do that right now because there's not a lot of inventory to show them. But if there is, put them in the car and show them. Set them up with a portal. Like I have a client, let's say I have a listing. And say it's 450,000, it's a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath on a slab in a certain area. And I know what the buyer's gonna look like. That buyer is gonna probably, maybe it's in that subdivision that has lease restrictions, so it's probably not gonna be an investor, okay? The house isn't really flippy, you know, so it's not gonna be an investor. So it's probably gonna be, you know, first time home buyers, okay? That are buying, you know, in this area. So set them up with a Google search, I mean, a FMLS search, as if they were the buyer, okay? 400 to 500, okay, price point. So maybe the age of the house, maybe it was built in 2000, so you want to start out 98 through new, right? So if I'm working with a buyer, I'm gonna show them new houses too, right? So set them up with a portal, so they're seeing what the buyers are seeing, okay? And also, if you're working with a seller and it's not selling, you need to, and buyers and sellers, check in with them every week, okay? Every week. You're under contract on new construction, and it's gonna be 6 months till you close, you call them every week, okay? I will tell you, many years ago, when I got my broker's license, okay, I was going to Marietta every day to Barney Fletcher to take a class. I had a client, we went under contract on new construction, it was a great experience, and the listing agent was all on top of it. She was communicating with them all the time. I kind of stopped communicating because I was studying, you know, I was working, I was going to school, and this agent, she had it covered. We got close to closing, and I called my client and said, okay, we're gonna schedule a walkthrough. They didn't call me back. The agent called me. She says, I'm sorry, they said they don't want you to come to closing. So guess what? I call my clients every week. Okay, I got that check. They didn't give me a bad review. Okay, they were happy, but I was never getting a referral. It's a really nice house. They ended up selling their house and moving somewhere else. And it was would have been a nice commission. Okay, but I dropped the ball. We all make mistakes, but we have to learn from them. So you have a client buying a house, selling a house, you call them every week. Okay, if new construction, you call that builder's agent every week and find out what's going on. Then call your client, okay? You want them to hear from you before they hear from the agent. And you want that agent to know that you've not just parachuted in expecting a paycheck, okay? So don't make that mistake, all right? Here's something, buyer's agent. My buyer thinks the home is worth $450,000, and I frankly agree. Okay. Well, seller's agent. There is nothing I like more than for your client to get this house. Okay. The seller knows that 123 Main sold for 480. So accepting the buyer's offer just doesn't make sense to her. I'd welcome any information you can give me to share with the seller. I'll present it to the seller immediately and see if it will help get the deal done. So always ask if you've developed that rapport with the other agent, you're, you know, there's a price point that somebody doesn't want to go above, or doesn't look like the market's really supporting that price. Kind of put them in the hot seat a little bit in a nice way. say, this is what we're looking at. Can you help me? Is there something you know that I don't, that I can then share with my client? Okay, sometimes enlisting their help helps get the deal done. Okay, and again, having that good rapport with the other agent is so important. Now, are you always gonna have that? No. But you need to try to help, okay? And you also don't want to draw a line in the sand. Okay, ultimatums can be very, very bad. Because how many times have you had a client say, you know, I'm not paying a dime more than $500,000? That's it. Okay, Mr. Miller. But what if it's 502? You're ready to walk because of $2,000? You know, because a lot of times your clients will give ultimatums. But ask, is that really your ultimatum? Are you really ready to give up this? Okay, because they think they're buying a car.
If you find out.
They think that this is my number, and as I'm walking out the door, that used car salesman's gonna hunt me down, which has happened to me when I bought used cars. It hunted me down and said, come back in. Okay, so it works when you're buying a car. It doesn't work when you're buying a house necessarily. So you've got to make sure that if there's a line in the sand, that is indeed a line in the sand. Okay, and if you get to a point where there's just no meeting of the minds, always try to leave it open. Always try to say, something changes, please call me. If you see the house sit, call back, you know. There's something going on, you know, your client might, you know, I had a listing one time, a really nice house in a nice subdivision on the river, not many of those. And we had a client come through and my seller did think their house was a lot better than it was, you know. And it was a little overpriced. We had this, I knew the agent, she lived in my neighborhood. She was that farming agent. And, so I went to the neighborhood, you know, mixer type of thing, and I saw her at the mixer, and she showed this house twice. And she's like, I just can't get him to budge, can't get him to make an offer. And we had a couple of glasses of wine, and I said, what if seller makes an offer to them? You think that would work? She said, you know, it might work. Send me an offer. And I'm thinking, you're just too lazy to write an offer. But maybe she wasn't. So I went back to my seller and said, you know, we can either lower the price, which we could do, and she didn't want to do. I said, or these people come in 2 times. You could do a reverse offer. We can drop an offer that's your perfect offer.
Sure.
Maybe a little bit less than where you are. And, you know, ask them, you know, kind of, did they have any contingencies they didn't, and, you know, give them, you know, 10-day due time. Like, we drafted a pretty clean offer and I sent it over to her. She had to present it, right? We as agents have to present all offers, even if it's a buyer, right?
Mhm.
So she presented it. We went back and forth, countered. We got to an offer that everybody could live with. And we sold it. And we sold it for more than we would have lowered the price to.
Mhm.
So he got what he wanted, right? And we got them off the fence, okay? So, you know, it was a good transaction. So sometimes you have to think out of the box because you're problem solvers.
Exactly.
So does anybody have anything negotiation wise that you want to ask about or share?
I had those, and I always wondered, what could I have done different, if anything at all? The other agent was really difficult, too emotional. She was a professional, you could tell, very educated, but extremely emotional in talking with one, even though I stopped her a couple of times. And it's because perhaps her seller was not a regular couple or seller, it was a relocation company. And they're very tough in what they want and don't want to do. So I was wondering always, what could I have done different to get more? I think I reduced the price quite a bit. And a lot of people would tell me, man, you reduced the price quite a bit on the going against a relocation company. That's a victory. But I always think I could have done more to address other concerns at the house and like that my buyer really wanted to. And I'm thinking, what is it I could have done, or I don't know.
Well, it's good that you're having this question. You know, I think it's always good to Monday morning or like, what could I have done better? You know, going forward, what should we do?
I mean, it closed
tweak our
everything, but
system,
still, you
things
still
like that, right?
ask yourself.
Right? Sometimes I've had, you know, I'm a bit of a driver, I can be a bit of a boxer in the ring, you know, but, I do know that when I have a client, an agent on the other side that's being difficult, it's always good to, it always helps if you at least start it on the good foot.
Sure.
And if you always bring them back.
Right.
And say, I understand that you may have a difficult, you may be in a difficult situation, you may have a difficult life. I understand. I get it. Help me help you.
Yeah, she stopped being emotional after I said exactly that, because I started really nice. I'm very nice and outgoing, and I can establish conversations that it's not even about real estate before we get to real estate, right? Just to develop a rapport. So we started that way, and I thanked her for whatever she did. And at the very end, I was also thankful when she thought perhaps I was gonna be like, you know, thrashing her. I was like, hey, thank you for all you did for this transaction. I know there's some stuff behind the work, behind the close door that you had to do. I appreciate that, you know.
Well, you know, sometimes,
Your reputation is important.
and you have to understand sometimes too, sometimes you deal with somebody that is never gonna be professional. And sometimes you have to say, look, let's do, and my husband always says, that's your word, look. Let's just communicate electronically. You know, let's just, it might be easier on everybody. So then you email and you text message and occasionally you call, but.
That's what
I
I did.
have a question. I have a question.
Uh-huh.
What if what your client wants you to negotiate, they just want you to negotiate and their reasons, like the laundry room is in a bedroom or the closet has a weird shape to it, or like it's like cosmetic, or it's not really what things should you try to negotiate, or is my client valid if they have a problem with things that I think aren't important?
Well, it's not about you,
Okay.
it's about their client.
Okay.
So you gotta ask your client more questions about, is that something that's gonna make or break it for them?
Right.
You know, if they want it, that's different than needing it. And you look at the market, okay, and decide and talk with them, be a consultant with them, share with them, you know, what's realistic in the marketplace for you to be able to ask of the seller, you know? Right now, we're in a seller's market, but if you went back 10 years or longer, you could almost ask for anything, okay? So you kind of have to know, you know, what can you get away with? Are you willing to pay extra for it? That's something good too, is because sometimes they're like, you know, I gotta have this. Okay, what's it worth it to you? Okay. So,
Okay.
and again, it's, and just say, look, maybe this isn't the house. If it's not, let's find you another house, but it might be a one. Are you okay with that? You know, tell them what the alternatives are.
Yeah. Okay.
There's nothing else you can do physically to change that laundry room out of the bedroom or whatever the case is. It's there, you know?
Well, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't, you know, sometimes you can build a closet, right? Sometimes you can redo it, you know, construction wise, right?
Nothing prior to.
Right, sometimes you can always fix something,
Sure.
you know? The support wall, you can't take it down, but, you know, you might can put a beam in or something.
Yep.
But again, you gotta listen and you gotta think, and you can't just say that's not something we can do. You could say,
What
I'm
if?
not sure that would get you what you want. You want something cosmetic or something structural that's gonna be hard for the seller to do, especially in the time frame that they wanna do it. It's not necessarily gonna add value to the house.
Right.
And then you become a difficult buyer, or you don't wanna say you're a difficult buyer, but the sellers, you know, you don't wanna say that. For your seller's gonna find it's gonna be a lot more difficult for them to close this transaction. They might be willing to take less money to have it be smoother. So is this something that is really make or break for you? You know,
Right.
is this the, you know, you gotta choose your battles. Right, choose your battles. Anything else?
Nope. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you, guys.
That's a good book. I think that I got it.
It's a great.
Done deal. Matter of fact, we may have it here. And
What were the names of the books again?
It's, done deal. Here, let me put the thing back up.
Yeah, that's how you.
Five doors.
Four doors, something like that. I think it's 40 dollars.
So,
Five.
Oh, it's only 5, yeah.
done deal,
Just Mr. Congress.
Seth Weisman. Okay.
Catherine Oates,
Anything?
and never split the difference.
Never split the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And who is the don't never split the difference by?
Chris Boss,
I'm just trying to.
Okay.
and you can get both of those on Audible and Kindle.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Karen. Nice. Thank you. Yeah, on down. There's another.